Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, please. Let's make sure we read the board. Only registered students in class. If you are not registered in the course, if you are in the waiting list or you haven't been registered in this course for whatever reason, you need to leave the room because there are not more spaces than necessary. So you need to leave the room now. The class is being streamed. If you eventually get into the course, you will not lose anything. Okay. So is there anybody here who is not in the list of registered students? Everybody is registered here. Okay. So only registered students in class. Okay. The second one is from now on, now it's 30. Okay. The clock is a bit behind. Every student who comes in, first row. Okay. There is a space in the first row for students who come in. So do not get up. Okay. Do not get up. They should sit in the first row. This is gonna be clear why in 1 second. Okay. I need to keep track of who is in class. So only registered students in class and people who come now, please take seats in the first row. I will distribute some number. Okay. Each of you should get one number. People in the first row will not get a number because this is for people who come now. So I keep track of who is new. You get one number, and this one number you will have to enter into the Moodle, and this ensures your registration for the rest of the course. Okay? You take this one number that I just give you, you put it in your Moodle account, you are registered. If you are registered and you don't put the number, you will show that you were not here today, and therefore you will lose registration. Okay, except for excused events health-wise. Okay, so I will just pass the maybe better in the back. It's probably easier. So you just pass it along. Okay, quickly. Take one. Nobody should take two. Okay, if I see somebody with two numbers or something like that, that person gets. This is an assignment of the course, so that person could get an X, meaning is equivalent to cheating. Okay, you should get one number only. So pass it along, get one number, and you have to input in the Moodle. I hope all of you have some sort of a smartphone or not. If you don't have a smartphone or something that you can use the VLAN of the university to get in, you should raise your hands now. Okay? If not, some of you cannot get into Moodle now, you should raise your hand, and you should answer in which is your number. Okay? Which is your number? You should submit your answer there. Okay? Let me just show you how you would see it. Switch role to student. You should add submission, and you should write it here, your number that you just got. Okay? And that's what you need to do to ensure registration. Who can do this? People who are in Moodle. To be in Moodle, you need to be registered. That's why it doesn't make sense that you are here if you are not registered. Okay, because you will not be able to certify your participation. I will not pass a list of signatures. Does this make sense? If you just came in, sits in the first row. That way I ensure that people who come in did not have the problem with the seat. People who come in, take first row seats. Is this so far clear? Should I repeat everything once more? You are receiving now a number. It's moving along, okay? One number. You input in the Moodle, there is an assignment that says, which is my number, okay? With that number, you ensure registration for the course. If you don't input the number, you will not get registration. Important. If you don't have any way to enter your Moodle, maybe a classmate can help you. If you don't, please raise your hand, okay? You cannot enter in Moodle? Submit a solution. Submit a solution. I just did it here. you go to add it depends on your version, I don't know, but add submission, submit, depends on, I don't know. For me, it says add submission, but if it says something different, you need to answer the thing. Okay? So 9 people have submitted, right? You can see those people already ensure registration. Is this so far clear? Anybody has a question with this system? No, it's the number there will be. That's why you guys in the first row came late. The number will be distributed to you at the end because everybody, there is still a few seats up there, but otherwise wait because we need to do the number thing and then you can get seats. So 2 people can come here to the front. 2 people only. Otherwise, you have to wait until we finish this part. I need to keep track of who is in the room. No. Please do not sit there because that could be a mess. You have to sit only in the first row. Yes, there are seats in the first row for now at least. Then you can move. Once we have registration, you can move, okay? But we need to make sure registration happens. Otherwise, I have to call names and this is a nightmare, right? So this is the easiest system. You get a number, pick one number, input it. That should be it. It's already going close to the half, okay? So it's going fast. Any questions? Yes. People in the first row, when we finish every other row, I will go to the first row. And also, there is 2 more spaces here. 2 more spaces here. And also the people who are in the back. So don't worry those who are in the waiting. You will also get a number, okay? But it doesn't make any sense, sorry, by the way. If you are not registered, you cannot put the number because you will not be in Moodle. If you are not in Moodle, right, you cannot, so nobody here should be here without being registered. You can sit here, there is 2 seats still, 3 seats. Okay, you have to submit it, sorry, in the assignment, which is your number, not in the Q&A. No. No, because the number is your number. Okay, the numbers are not all the same. Okay, yes, continue. Is this clear? You have to input in what is your number. That's why, which is your number. There are 39 submissions already, okay? So it's moving. Questions? Okay, if somebody has a question, raise the hand. If nobody has a question, okay, now I can introduce myself. I'm Daniel Garcia, okay, I'm teaching this course in microeconomics. Most of you are students from the Applied Economics Masters. Many of you are first semesters. Some of you I've already seen. Not the greatest thing in the planet, but let's see if this time is better, okay? You know, this is a course that it's gonna try to give you, you know, what you need in terms of tools to take other courses in this degree. That's the objective. It's a course that is a bit challenging in the sense that there are the students with very different backgrounds, and that's the main difficulty. But I will be more specific. So apart from this, in the Moodle you can find a Q&A. You already saw. You can ask questions there. These can be questions about how the course is going or the materials. You will have access to recorded sessions. Very important. The class will be recorded and will be available for 1 week. Okay, 1 week. This is for you to catch up if you cannot make it to the lecture. This is not for you to binge watch in January. Okay? And the way it works, the system is really bad, but actually I like it because the only way I can delete a video from the system is by deleting the video. So the video disappears from the system, does not exist. So I do not want anybody in January who says, you know what, why don't you put them back? Would be great for me because I don't have them. Okay, so do not think that there is something in economics we call commitment power. Commitment power is the ability to do what you promise. Well, in this case, I have 100% commitment power because once I remove the video, it's not available anymore. So there is no possibility for binge watching. Recorded sessions are there only for you to catch up. If you cannot make it to a class, no problem, you can catch up. If you can make it but you are not here, you can also live stream it. Okay, the class is currently being live streamed. Probably nobody should be watching because if you can access this and you have time, you should have been coming to class. But I mean, it's easier to just live stream it. Maybe somebody's sick and could still catch up. I don't know. But if you know, for people who are maybe watching this afterwards, for instance, if you were in the waiting list and now you are enrolled, you can catch up. Okay. There is a link here for office hours. Okay, it's a termin. It's a dating planner app. You have to sign up for you have to sign up for the office hours. Do not sit there. Do not sit there. Okay, because this would be very difficult to catch up. Sorry about that. You can sign up there for your office hours. Oh, there is still a post in the Q&A. No, you don't have to write it in the Q&A. You have to write it in the... Sorry. You have to write it in which is your number. And then submit your answer to which is your number, not to the Q&A. Sorry. Here, which is your number? Not Q&A. Q&A is for questions about the course. Office hours. Hopefully you can use the app. If you cannot find a time that is suitable for you, you can write me an email. But I now have a responsibility in the faculty, okay? And that responsibility takes a lot of my time. So my ability to find other slots is very limited. So it's best if you can find a time in my office hours. And you can have the link there. You will have the lecture notes and other materials. Other materials will typically be videos and additional notes that are, you know, maybe applications of what we see in class or something like that. So that's what you see in Moodle. In addition, I recommend you add yourself, if you haven't, to the Moodle called Applied Economics Wiki, especially Applied Economics students, but other students may also add themselves as well. The link is in the You Find entry of the course, so you can find it there, and it's a self-registering Moodle, so you directly get in. And there you can have also Q&A, there is information on curriculum, thesis supervision, some job ads, and we will also be adding stuff on validation of courses. Okay, this is still more in progress, but we will be adding this, and that should solve many of the questions, so you don't need to ask many times the same email question because it's going to be solved there. Okay, so you should add yourself to this, and the link is available in the You Find entry of the course. So let me Google myself. This is the cheapest way to get there. For general information on the program, you click there and you will get, you will be asked whether you want to enroll, and you enroll automatically. Okay? And there I will also be sending announcements. Okay? Sending announcements. Not only me, but also Alejandro Cuñat, who is going to be the more responsible for this program. Good. So this is going to be in Moodle. In addition, yeah, that's basically going to be what you can find in Moodle. Questions on this? I wanted to show you these things. Any questions on the Moodle? I just explained. No, where is the number list? Where are the numbers? The back. Where is the back? Where is the back with numbers? There, okay. When you are done, the last person, please come to bring it to the front, okay? Whoever is the last person, okay? Then we can deal with the rest of the people. Good, so intro, okay? What is this course about? What are we gonna do, etc. Okay, so the objectives of the course: to discuss the main ideas and tools of economics in a rigorous manner. Most important for me is to develop economic intuition, but that is consistent with economic understanding. Okay, so not it's very important. It's not a course that you pass by solving exercises, but by understanding what you're doing, okay, and by explaining it. This is the part that also many people struggle, but this is the part that we will be focusing most of our time. We will, of course, introduce basic economic models and explore their potential uses and limitations, and provide an economics perspective to applied policy questions. This is sometimes going to be in class. Sometimes this will be based on these extra materials that I just told you. Okay. The course is self-contained. Okay. Why? Because the background of students is very heterogeneous. Some students have a degree in economics, some students have degrees in other fields, and the idea is the course is self-contained, and of course that means that some parts of the course may be repetitive for some of you, some parts of the course will be totally new for some of you. The course should be such, and it has been such in the past, that there are new things for everybody. Okay, unless you already took this course. And even then, there are new things, because I changed a little bit. The emphasis will be on ideas and economic argumentations rather than on the formalism and computation. That would be for other courses. Here, what we are interested in is in developing our mind and our understanding as economists, so that these are developing tools and developing mental frames that can be used in a variety of applications, because that's kind of the general interest of this program, that to develop applications. As I said, the main challenge, of course, is heterogeneous backgrounds. For some, most of the concepts should be familiar, and you will see new ideas or uses of those concepts. For others, almost everything will be new. But there is a single group, okay? So there are not two groups. Actually, that wouldn't make sense, because you could always want to enroll in the easiest of the two. So that means that, we will have to do an effort, me, you, and all of us. We will use calculus and optimization at the level required for admissions. It's available in the website, what it's supposed to do. Now, this next week on Monday, I will explain there is an associated, there is a connected course called the UBUNG. And in this course, there will be some refreshers, okay? Math refreshers of the very basics that we will be using in the UBUNG. Now, some of you here already passed the UBUNG and don't need to do it anymore. Anybody here who doesn't have to do the UBUNG, for instance? Right. So a few of you, very few, but a few. Some of you may have not have to do the UBUNG because they do not belong to the applied economics program. For instance, raise your hand if you don't have to do the UBUNG because you don't have. I still recommend you to ask for enrollment to the Moodle of the UBUNG, so you have the materials. You don't need to hand in anything. You don't need to. No. Sorry. Why did you take a number? Give back the number, please. As I said, only numbers people sitting, okay? People standing and people in the front, I deal with this now. Sorry. I was saying, is it done? Is everybody got a number who is seated? No, first row, no. Everybody who is seated got a number. Can you please bring this to the front? Okay. Yes, I recommend, yes. So, yes, I will elaborate more on the UBUNG. So, first row, pass it along. And those in the front, come here to pick the number. Those in the back, come here to pick the number. And remember, you have to add the number in the entry, which is your number in Moodle. Which is your number in Moodle, you have to enter your number. That ensures registration for the course. Okay, and then you are done. You are registered. So far, how many registrations? Let's keep the statistic, 135, okay? 135, maybe 20 more. There will be still space. Good. What I was saying, this is an exercise in multitasking right there. The UBUNG. So this module for applied economics has 10 ECTS. This course gives 8 ECTS, and there are 2 ECTS of an exercise class. The exercise class has 3 groups. Groups 1 and 2 are relevant for you guys. Group 3 is not relevant for you guys. If you are enrolled in group 3, you should de-enroll from that and move to groups 1 or 2. Okay? Group 3 is not for you guys. Groups 1 or 2 will be covering the things from the lecture. We'll be doing exercises, we'll be doing some background materials, and we'll be doing the homeworks. This UBUNC, okay, will be covering things from the course. So even if you are not enrolled, it makes sense to have access to the Moodle, to have access to these materials. You do not need to hand in anything, but you can learn from the videos and you can learn from the materials. It's not forced. If you don't want, you don't have to do it. But if you, it's likely that it is valuable for many of you to have access to these materials. No. So the number of these students will be accepted in those in the UBUNC as well. This would not be. Yeah, this will be fixed if that is the case. Yes. So this should not be the issue. But anyhow, out of these 200 people who are accepted here, not everybody has to do the UBUNC, as I said. But everybody will get in because these courses are online. There is no reason why you should not get in. Okay, everybody will get in. But because they are online, there is no reason to restrict the entry. Question? It's called tutorial, yes. UE is for UBUNC, which in German is tutorial or exercise. Yes. Repeat, please. Group 3 of the UBUNC is for students who already passed this course, but haven't passed the UBUNC. Okay, so if you are assigned to group 3, you should ask for moving to groups 1 or 2. I will make sure that everybody gets in groups 1 or 2. Okay? You should, if you are in group 3, you should deregister from group 3, and I will let you guys in groups 1 or 2. Okay? Because group 3 is for students who already completed this lecture. Yes. It would be better if you are, if you are in group 3, write me. Email. If you are in group 3, so let me write this down here. If group 3, email. If wait list, wait, you will be enrolled. If no need for UBUNC, ask for Moodle registration. So you have access to the materials, not forced. If you don't want to do it, no problem. Moodle registration, not course registration, Moodle registration. Is clear? Yes? To enroll yourself, you need to ask the lecturer to add you. It's done. Yes, very good. Okay, so now you guys can sit. Sorry for that, but I just needed to make sure that everybody gets one number and one number only. You can find a seat, yes? There should be enough seats. You need a number. Okay. Questions on the Ubuntu? Yes, any question. We have all time here today to answer questions. The more questions we answer today, the less questions we have to answer in January. I think so. I'm not an expert on the registration of the... Nora Kungel, that's number 3. Okay. If the way that you can see, if you are in the group of Nora Kungel, that's number 3. Now, what is the problem of number 3? I'm just telling you because you could, I cannot force you to take, sorry, please, let me, if I'm going to explain these things, at least you should listen, okay? Because otherwise, sorry. If you are in Nora Kungel's course in number 3, the problem is everything that she's going to do is not going to be useful for the course. So you will be doing things which will take some effort, and they are interesting things, don't get me wrong, they are good things to do, but they are not going to be helping you for the course. You should still want to enroll on the other Moodle to see what the other guys are doing, because that's helpful for the course. So it makes no sense to be in Nora's course because you would be doing twice the job for the same ECTS. That's why it doesn't make sense. But you want to do it, be my guest. I'm not policing it. You need numbers. One for... Please, she's asking a question and I cannot hear her. No, enrolled means you will get enrolled in the course. Access to Moodle is just the materials. Exactly, yes. Everybody should be able to get the ECTS. This will be only, and this was where I was, back to the slides. The first class, there will be a math refresher, which is for people who have a weak background in math, who don't feel comfortable with things like optimization. If you know this stuff, don't go, don't attend, don't waste your time. If you know this stuff, don't waste your time. If you don't know it, it's good to start the course already with some effort there. So you should attend the lecture on Monday that will give you a refresher on optimization. And that will be two classes because it's 45 minutes is too short. So that's why he sent an email that said the first time will be 90 minutes. There are 2 groups. Usually it's 45 minutes with each group. This time will be 90 minutes with both groups. Does this make sense? More questions? What are you doing? Yeah. Yes, but the special cases I cannot deal now. Everybody can go. Once you registered, you don't have to be here. Yes, so don't come to ask me whether you can go. Okay, any more questions? Participation in the course, it's desired, like anything. I don't police participation. This is the last time I police. I have to check for registration. There are people waiting to see if they can get a seat. That's the reason. Otherwise, not interested. More questions? So the course will take place in person. I will upload. I explained this already from the Moodle. This I already explained in the Moodle. There are many textbooks listed in the YouFind. References that are very good references, but none of them contains the whole course. Now, if you need some background material on some topic, you can write me. If you want further material on some topic, you can also write me. But I do not recommend you any specific book, because in the past, whenever I tried this, people were very disappointed that I didn't follow the book. The course is meant for this program. It's not meant for other programs, okay? If I were to another university tomorrow, I wouldn't teach this course. I would teach a different course. And that means that no book is suitable for this material. Hey, all of them are useful, but they are not, I don't follow them. Yeah? I know that many of you like classes with books. This is the decision I made. And I don't have the time to write a book. This is the Ubuntu. That's right, this information. There are 3 types of things you do in the Ubuntu. More or less, they are with every lecture the same repetition. The first time is you do the math refresher, that's only once. But then there will be a class in which the tutor will go over basic things that, the basic examples. And then there will be the class in which he will go over the homework. The basic example should give you hints on how to solve the homeworks, but the most important classes are the ones on the homeworks, because the homeworks are the ones that are similar to the exam, not the basic exercises. Okay? So these are the most important classes. And the evaluation of the Ubuntu will be based on the homeworks, not on the other stuff. There will be 2 exams, midterm and end term. Each of them is 50%. These are the dates. They are in the UFind. You will be assigned to one of the lecture rooms before, and you should stick to that. This will be based on your name. You can retake the midterm, the end term, or both at the end of the semester. This will be on Friday, February 7th. They will be simultaneous. You say, look, I want to do again the midterm. Well, you do the midterm. Look, I want to do again the end term. Okay, you do the end term. Oh, I did very bad in both. I want to do both. You do both. It's a different exam. It's not 2 exams. It's 1 exam. It's double. Okay, the whole material, but a single exam. Okay. To participate in the retake, you need to show up for the exam. You cannot retake an exam you never took, because retake has the word re. That means second time. If you never showed up for the exam, you cannot retake it. Okay. Questions? Examination? No complaints? For now? Good. So, we are doing very well on time. We already finished this part. Yes? No, okay, very good question. You do not need to pass any specific part. It's the average that matters. So you get a 0% in the midterm and 100% in the end term, you're fine. You get a 0% in the midterm, 0% in the end term, you retake the full exam, you get 50%, you pass. Okay, it's simple, just an average. No, you can, but the grade is the new grade. You can retake exams that you passed or not. There is no passing the midterm. It's only the last grade. You can retake it for better grade. Of course, for instance, you can do, maybe you didn't do very well you did well in the midterm, 60%, and did very poorly in the end term, 20%. But you think you can get a better grade in the midterm, you can retake the midterm instead of the end term. Okay, it's not to get a better, maybe 90% and then pass, for instance. So it's flexible. But the grade that counts is the second grade. Okay. Now, I usually, as a matter of fact, let me just make it so that nobody's confused. The way that I do it is I only adjust the grade if it actually changes your final grade, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So some people have been confused in the past because they retook, it went worse, and I didn't adjust their grade in Moodle. But that's because it couldn't change anything. Okay. So just to say, if you don't see a change in the Moodle grade, is that you didn't do better, basically. But it didn't matter for the grade. So if you have a 52% and you do worse in the end term, I am sorry. So in the retake, I am sorry, you fail. Okay? So that counts. If you move grade, you move grade. But if not, then I don't change it. People came new. Those who came late and they didn't get a number, raise the hands. You didn't get a number because you came late. You have to stay until the end. More questions? Yes. Sorry? Question pattern. They are like the homeworks. Actually, most of the homeworks you will do are previous year's questions. So the best training, the homeworks in the Ubuntu that you will see in the Moodle on the Ubuntu. I will also post the homeworks in the main course, but you don't have to hand in or anything. You just can see them, so that you can see them in case you don't want to enroll in the Moodle. Yes, the homeworks for people who have to take the Ubuntu for grade, they will be graded in the Ubuntu. Okay? But if you don't have to take the Ubuntu for grade, no, you don't have to hand them in and they will not be graded. No. Okay? Because last year I had a very bad case with this. The exams are not open books in this course. I have another course where it's open books, not this course. Okay? Do not get confused with that. This course, for the examination, you cannot not bring anything. You can bring a calculator, but it is not useful. But you can bring it. I don't police that. You cannot bring your phone, though. Your phone you have to leave outside. I will be specific when we come to the exams. But your phone you would have to leave, where you leave your coats and stuff, or your bags. So, and the exam will not be in this. Some people will be in this room. Some people will be in number 4, because we don't fit. I mean, as you see, it would not be very natural to have an exam so packed. Questions? More questions? I rather answer all questions now, yeah, because. But questions may come up during the course, of course. You are always happy to. In this course, no. In the Ubuntu, all the homeworks you can hand in groups. So the homeworks, that's a group work, yeah. But exams are impersonal, yes. And the groups you can form yourselves. Up to 4 people. If there are questions like you think you can ask me, you can go to the Q&A, or you can write me an email. We can set up a time in the office hours if you need to discuss something in more depth. You can ask the tutor in the tutorial when the topic is discussed. Hey, I had problems with this or with that. You have many resources online for specific topics. Yes, I cannot really tell you for every topic. But that's basically it. Questions? Okay. Well, so we have still, yeah, it was very fast. Yeah. Let me start with the material, okay? If you are not interested, you can leave. This course, it's an introduction to microeconomics as a way to introduce you to the use also of models in economics. And the most, economics uses a framework typically, not only modeling. Some of you any of you were yesterday in the lecture that Professor Wieland gave? Nobody was there? Yeah, he talked a lot about models, whether models are good or bad. I don't have much of an opinion on that, but people use them, okay? And if we are going to be an economist, we need to understand them to some extent. And models, which are just simple representations of reality, in economics, they are very specific. Not every model is an economic model, and they have some defining features, okay? So the first thing is that most models are grounded on individual choices. I mark choices here, but individual is also very important. Economics is an individualistic discipline. In economics, individuals make choices, not groups, okay? And that perspective, this individual perspective, is very important to economics, because the fundamental object in which our models and our understanding is based is the behavior of individuals. The second thing is that it is grounded on choices. Okay, that's the basic unit of analysis, the choice of an individual. First, because choices is what we do see. We see people buying something and not something else, voting for someone and not for someone else, migrating to a country and not to another country, or staying in where they come from. Yes, studying a degree and not studying this degree, or studying a different degree, or working. And those choices is what we see. Okay, and so that's the fundamental unit of analysis in economics. So these are questions like, if I have to choose between A and B, those are the alternatives, I choose A. The standard model, and by standard model I mean, so quote unquote, the non-behavioral economics model, the traditional model, which is still the point of reference for most of what we do, although we understand it is very defective, it is still the first point that people use, if anything, to criticize it, but that's still the reference point for many things, assumes that these choices are consistent with some underlying preference. Okay? And even the more advanced models say that the choices are either consistent with that or something weird happens. We'll talk a little bit about the weirdness in this course, but in this program, you have a lot of courses that talk about weirdness. So here we are going to talk less about that. So the standard model assumes that the choices are consistent with some preferences. If I choose A over B, it must be that A is, in some sense, for me, not worse than B. Because if A, for me, in some sense, was worse than B, I should choose B. At least if I think about it long enough. And these preferences that underlie my choices, can generally be represented, okay? There is a representation of these preferences, which preferences are just comparisons. You know, A is better than B, this party is better than that party, this country is better than this country, this bundle of goods is better than this bundle of goods, this restaurant I like better. We can represent those under some conditions with a utility function. And you have maybe seen utility functions before. So if A is not worse than B, then I say that the utility associated by E is not lower than the utility associated by B. We will see this more specifically what it means, but this is just a simple construction that allows us to represent the comparison between different alternatives in a succinct way, in a metric. Okay, and this metric we will discuss in the next couple of classes. So the questions that we will be answering in this first lecture is, what does it mean that individual choices are consistent with preferences? That's the first question we're going to be answering here. And I think it's a question that many people overlook. What do you mean really when you say that a person's choices are consistent with some preferences? Is it possible to test the assumption that these choices are consistent with those preferences in some sense? Do you need to know the preferences to know whether the individual actually behaves in a way that is consistent with the preferences? Because most of us have never seen preferences. I see your face and I don't know your preferences. I could ask you many questions, but would that really give me? It's not very clear. But I could see your choices and then think a little bit about what does that tell me about what you want. And if we can somehow say that your choices are consistent with your preferences, does this allow us to derive some measure of individual well-being based on these preferences? Okay? And under which, how does this work? And then can we use this function, this measure of welfare, in however metric it is, to make policy recommendations to achieve some goals that people are maybe as happy as possible if you want. And that's true for an individual. And what happens with a society as a whole? Can we say that these choices told us something about somebody's preferences? We do this for many people. And when can we then say that this policy is better than that policy? Because given the preferences that we derive from people's choices, somehow on average or somehow aggregated all of us in some way, that would be good for us. That's going to be questions that we will be answering very partial answers, of course. This course is, of course, one course, but these are questions that we will be thinking about over the next few classes. So let's start with choices, because as I said, choices are the unit of analysis that we have in economics, both in the, as I said, the standard model, but also almost any model. There are very few models that are not rooted on choices. And there are very few, not only models as in, let's call it theory, but also in the way that we represent or we think about the data. We think about the data, then the data we see choices. And that's how we interpret what people tell us based on choices. There is very limited work in economics. There is more recently based on what people tell us. Most of it is based on what people do. So a choice rule is a rule that selects, so a choice is basically a rule that tells you, given some choice of alternatives, picks an element and chooses it. You give a chocolate box to a child, the child looks at the chocolates and picks one. He has some rule to do that, or she has some rule to do that. That's the choice. So the important thing is that I told you, it's the chocolate box, right? The chocolate box is X, is the set of available alternatives, what the child can choose from, okay? And C of X is the choice. X, little x, tiny x, is one alternative, is one choice that the person makes from this big set X. It's one of the chocolates, the one that the child picks, okay? You have here many examples, okay, just to see, and I will be trying to make clear that the beauty, or sometimes is the doom of economics, is that it is can be applied to anything. And so some people say it can, because it works for everything, it works for nothing. Possible, but in this case, it does work for everything. You can think of the set of candidates in an election, the set of train destinations from Vienna, the set of all possible baskets that a consumer with 100 euros in the pocket can buy, the set of all legal moves in the game of chess, the set of all available partners in a dating app, the set of values that you can transmit to your children. These are just examples of things that people actually have used this framework for, okay? For all sorts of questions. And we will be doing some of them during the course. People choose, and they choose for some reason. They have a reason to act, okay? And in economics, we not only look at the individual choice, but we look at the individual choice in a very specific way. Okay, we think about it from a subjective perspective. So what we call rationality is nothing to do with an outside observer who evaluates choices of people and say these are good choices, these are bad choices. Okay, you will see now an example that should clarify this point. So Anne is intolerant to lactose, and drinking a whole glass of milk will kill her. Anne knows this and still chooses to drink instead of water from an open bar. Is Anne irrational? And many people would say it's irrational. And why is it irrational? No, not because of that. They don't assume that Anne wants to live. They impose that Anne has to want to live. They say it's bad for Anne not to want to live. And therefore, a person who doesn't fulfill an objective that is worthy is irrational in some sense. Okay? It's not that they are thinking that she should want that she wants this or not. It's that they are not thinking what she wants. Okay? So this is the difference between internal and external reasons. Okay? Anne's choice is internally rational if she wants to die, but not externally rational because one ought not to want not to live. Okay? Ought not to kill herself. So from an outsider's perspective, we say Anne's choice is not consistent with an external rationality, but it may be consistent with what she wants, and that doesn't violate any measure of internal rationality. In economics, we are subjective people. We look at it from the perspective of the person. And that means we are looking for internal reasons. There is an internal reason to drink, which is to kill yourself. In economics, as I said, we focus on internal reasons, and choice is rational if it fulfills her objectives, whatever those objectives are. Actually, what we are going to be trying to do is figuring out those objectives. Now, it may seem, and many people conclude from this, that everything goes. Whenever you see somebody killing themselves, rational. Somebody doesn't kill themselves, also rational. Okay, so then what is rationality? That's the question that remains. Well, in economics, we have a very simple definition, and it's basically what is written there. We equate rational choice with internally consistent choice. Okay? Internally consistent. What is internally consistent is you do things, and all your things, in some sense, are aligned with some objective. You don't do one thing that point in one direction and other things that point in another direction. You should do all the things pointing in the same direction. Okay? If you do sometimes following one way of, and another time a completely different one, we say you are not rational. That's roughly it. Okay? So, in economics, we like not to explain these things in English because English explanations, they can be misunderstood. So we like to put them with some formulation that it is clear what we mean. And of course, when you see this formulation, very often you say, that's not clear to me. That's right. But that's why you are in the class, so you learn. So it says here, if you choose this chocolate X from this chocolate box, big X, and there is another chocolate, Y, that is in this box X, and then you see another box, capital Y. This other box is some other box of chocolates. And the little X was in the first box. And you ask the child, forget about the first box, look at the second box. You chose little X. What would you want to choose now in this capital Y? And the child changes and chooses Y that before was already available. Well, if you do that, that's wrong. That's irrational. If you don't do that, that's consistent. So let me go back to the example. The child, there is a big box and there is a black chocolate and a white chocolate box, chocolate. There is a black chocolate and a white chocolate. And the black chocolate, the kid picks it and doesn't pick the white chocolate. I give him another box. It has all sorts of other chocolates in there. And the child says, no. Okay, now that you give me this new box, then I want the white chocolate. That is inconsistent with our action. He should choose either the first black chocolate that he already chose, or, in some sense, a new chocolate that was not available before. But not a chocolate that before he rejected. Okay? Because that shows that he has conflicting interests. Sometimes he wants one thing, sometimes he wants another. Now, importantly, in the example I gave you, it's very important that the child did not get to eat any of the chocolates, and the choice happened very quickly. So you cannot tell me, but she changed her preferences, or she got tired of black chocolates, or something like that. Okay, because it was very quick. Didn't get to choose, didn't get to consume what she chose, so in no meaningful way is the second problem different. So we are always going to be working with these hypothetical problems that, at least to the best of our ability, happen simultaneously, and they are just alternative universes. And only one of them, in some sense, materializes. Is this clear so far? This is the definition of rationality. Now, is this a good definition of what we think of rationality? I don't know. Okay? It's a definition that we use in economics for some good reasons, but it may not be what you intrinsically think is rationality. But it's the one that economists use, and so therefore we have to learn it. Second point is that it may seem that this condition, okay, that's so extreme, nobody would do that. Well, as a matter of fact, all of us violate this assumption in our lives. Okay? There are so many examples that we do all the time. The question is are these violations severe enough that we have to throw it away or not? And on that, there is a lot of discussion. There is a lot of discussion. So, in English, if X is chosen when X and Y are available, Y should never be chosen when X is available. If X is chosen. Now, if some of you may be wondering, I'm assuming here, for simplicity in this course, this is not necessary for the theory, but I'm assuming that the individual is never indifferent, okay? Just in case. It's never indifferent in the sense that he may choose both. Could choose this or that. No, it's every choice is a single option. So that's why that is not a problem. So if you choose X and rejected Y, it must be that you should never now choose Y whenever X is available. Doesn't mean that you should always choose X, because maybe there is something else that is better, but you should not choose. You should not choose Y because you already rejected it. So I know a stupid example. Suppose a student chooses to study P&E, discarding both philosophy and economics. Now the student is offering the additional option to study political science. He thinks about it and says, well, now what I should really do is economics. No. You should either do political science or P&E. Okay? You should not do either econ or philosophy, because those options you already had before and you rejected them. And before just means in this alternative universe. Okay? But, in this alternative universe in which you are offered this versus this other universe in which you are offered that. When the set of available alternatives is P&E, econ, and philosophy, you choose P&E. If the set of available alternatives expands and now you have political science as well, you should not go back to one of your rejected options. Clear? Now, as I said, this axiom may sound very basic, but we all violate it. For instance, this is a very classical example based on mental accounting. Elliot is in a department store to buy a computer for 1,000 euros and a book for 20 euros. The saleswoman at the computer section offers him a 10 euro discount if he fills in the personal data. Elliot refuses since the discount is very small relative to the price of the computer. The salesman at the book section offers him a 50% discount if he fills the personal data. Elliot accepts. Now, in both cases, Elliot is offered, in the first case, a computer of 1,000 euros. In the first case, he chooses to have the computer he chooses not to get the personal data for 10 euros. In the second one, he chooses to get the personal data for 10 euros. It's the kind of the same choice. Supposedly, it's just bundled differently, okay? Because you do this mental accounting. People tend to like to put more emphasis on when they are small amounts on discounts versus on big amounts. If somebody gives you 100 euro discount on a car, people do not even consider it, but they would definitely take 100 euro discount on a Coca-Cola. But this is still the same 100 euros. And so the choice did not change, but the available alternatives did not change, but the choice changes. This is a practical, or more like, let me call it a real example, not a hypothetical example. This is based on, I believe it's Hong Kong or Singapore, huh? I forgot now which country. I think it's Singapore, but it doesn't matter. So this is the hypothetical part, this is the real part, okay? The hypothetical part is there are two guys who both get hired by the same company, and they need to they have to go to buy a car to get to drive to work, because the company is located far away. Not far away, but in a remote location. And they both go to the car dealer, and they both get the same car. But actually, one of them gets the car, but from a friend. The same car, and for a friend, much cheaper. Okay, because Hans gets it for 10,000, and Franz gets it the same car for 30,000. Hans got it from a friend. Okay, that wanted to sell it, so he got a better deal. 1 week after buying the car, the company goes bad. It was in a remote location for good reason. Company did no longer there, so they are actually fired, and they don't need the car anymore to travel to work. Who do you think would drive their car more afterwards? Who? Franz. Why? He paid more for it. So he now feels like he has to use it. The choice afterwards, okay, now to map it into the real world, you need to put some assumptions. I mean, you could say nothing really is different between Hans and Franz, other than they paid 20,000 euros, which is gone. Now, it could be that because he paid these 20,000 euros, he's poorer. Would this mean that he has to use his car more or less? He should use it less because he has to buy the gasoline. Am I right? So, or he could even sell it. But not what we expect him to do. We expect him to use it more because he paid more. Now, the choice between Hans and Franz are alternative universes of the same person. I'm putting you in their feet, and I'm saying, what would you do? And probably you end up doing what Franz does, which is to drive more. Now, this sounds like a hypothetical example. It is, but this on the right panel is what actually happened in, I believe it's Singapore. Yeah? So Singapore has very high registrations for out cars. And the actual price of the registration depends on many things, but mostly on the number of registered cars. So they want to keep the number of cars, at least this was the case in the early 2000s. I believe it is still the case. They want to keep the number of cars fixed, so they compute a price based on the stock of cars. So every year, calendar year, there is a different rule for the price that you need to pay to register your car. And as you can see here, of course, Singaporeans are it's Singapore because it's an S here. Yes, that's right. They are quite rich, but these are actually substantial amounts, okay? These are really very substantial amounts you need to pay. It's the most expensive registration in the world. I don't remember the exchange rate, but, think about them as euros. It's not so far. So you have to pay a lot of money to register. And then what they did in this study is actually to compare the number of kilometers that each of these people drive, depending on the year of registration. And so you can see that those who bought cheapest indeed drive much less. Okay, so this dashed line, the gray line is the second highest, and this is the number of monthly kilometers as a function of age. So you see that, the older guys, when they got the car new, they already were using it. The newer guys, because they paid less, they were already using it less. Okay? And I mean, the difference is not like 10 and 30,000. I mean, it's like 20%, but it is in their money substantial amount. And people tend to, say, if I pay so much, I'd rather use it. But of course, if you think about it, other than the difference between these 2 years of $1,000, their lives are, on average, you would not expect these are alternative lives. Yeah, there is no relation between them. So you would actually not expect different choices. You see, this is another example of hypothetical worlds happen, something changes in your choice problem, and you behave in a way that is not consistent with your previous choice. Is it clear? So this says that the assumption very often doesn't hold. So the assumption has bite in the sense that having an axiom there that everybody would fulfill always would be useless. It's maybe too bad that too many people don't follow it, but there are many different types of problems. In some problems, these things are more salient. In some problems, people, are more reasonable. They think a little bit more about it, and they don't make these mistakes. But one has to keep in mind that this exists. Now, in this course, we will not focus very much on that, only a few things here and there. It will show up every now and then. But we have many courses in our programs on this type of behavior. So I encourage you to take those courses if you are interested. Now, this is another example. I don't have to go into that. Questions on the the idea of rational choice based on these alternative worlds in which you face similar choices, and whenever you had a choice before that you discarded, that choice no longer becomes your choice if the choice that you chose before is still available. You see, these people who spend more money, whatever the person who spends 16,000 euros can do, the person who has 13,000 euros can also do, but they drive less. Yeah. So that, in that sense, is inconsistent with the axiom. Of course, when you go to the real world, you need to make assumptions, like people like to have more money rather than less money and things like that. But those assumptions we will typically have to do. Good. So what are these preferences? I told you choices, in some sense, are connected with preferences. When I say that somebody chooses something, I'm almost saying that she wants it more. Okay, so what does it mean to want it more? Well, it means there are some preferences, which is a relation over alternatives. It's a comparison. It's not a choice. It's not a choice. It's a hypothetical ranking. Okay, so you can say that a tennis player is ranked ahead of another tennis player. You don't say that you choose that player. You know that it is ranked ahead. Okay, but you don't need to. It's not directly connected to a choice problem. Only if they ask you, with whom would you like to spend the night with or go play tennis with, that's a choice. But in principle, you know there is a ranking. So these two things, in some sense, the choice is just some manifestation of a problem that is connected to some preference. And so in economics, we use this symbol to represent preferences. So X is preferred to Y, it comes before Y, it's better than Y. Okay, and this symbol includes two possibilities. One is that they are equally good, or that you are indifferent between them, which is the first symbol. And the other option is that one is strictly better than the other, so that means that it's better and the other one is not the case. Okay, so just to clarify, if you write X is just like Y, this means that X is better than Y and Y is better than X. Okay, both things are true. And if you write that X is strictly better than Y, this means that X is better than Y and not Y is better than X. This is not true. Okay, so if you are better than someone else and that someone else is better than you, you're just as good as each other. Okay, and if you are better than someone else but that the opposite is not true, you must be really better than the other person. Now, we will have two axioms that people have in economics that they always ask of these preferences to satisfy. So preferences, as I said, they are comparisons of things. Blue is better than red. 2,000 is better than 1,000. Whatever. Comparisons of living in Vienna with a salary of this much and having this job and having 2 children and is better than being in prison and alone and isolation and so on. But that's a choice. You can choose. You can not a choice. It's a pair of things, right? And you say one is better than the other, right? For you, okay? That's what you are meaning. And so we want to have some restrictions on this ability of people to answer this question somehow. The first one is completeness. It says you can always tell. If I ask you between this life in Vienna and this life in a cell, you should be able to tell me the answer. So it's either one is better or the other is better or both, meaning there is indifferent, but you can always tell. Okay, that's what we are going to assume. You can always tell. We will see what is an example of a violation of that. The second one is more important, or more important, or more, it's more controversial. It's called transitivity. If your life like that in Vienna is better than the life in the cell, and the life in the cell is better than the life, I don't know, inside of a volcano, well, your life in Vienna should be better than the life in the volcano. It should not be that now between the Vienna and the volcano you say, give me the fire. Okay? You can prefer the fire to Vienna, that's perfectly consistent, but it should not be consistent. We are not want that between Vienna and the volcano, you prefer the volcano if you prefer Vienna to the cell and the cell to the volcano. Does this make sense? It makes intuitive sense. There are millions of pages being written about whether this is really so obviously necessary or not. And we are not discussing this in this course. It's intuitive, we'll take it. Now, transitivity rules out reversals, and you will see that this is an example, I think, that many people would also, say, well, that's fine with me. So you go to the bookshop and you look for crime novels to read in the pool. If the book's prices are roughly the same, plus to minus €5, you prefer the longer book because in the pool there are many hours to fill. Else, you look for the cheaper. Book A is €10 and 400 pages. Book B is €14 and 500 pages. Book C is €17 and 700 pages. So you look at the first two books, A and B. Somebody asks you which one you prefer, and you have this way of thinking, and you say, well, the first book B is a bit more expensive, but not by much, and it's longer, so I'd rather have book B. Somebody asks you between B and C, they says, well, C is a bit more expensive, and it's much longer, so I'd rather have C. But somebody asks you between A and C, you look at it and says, well, but C is very expensive, I'd rather have A. Okay? So that gives a violation of transitivity. Okay? That's an example where you violate transitivity. It's not crazy that somebody chooses in this way. Okay? It's not chooses, no. Not somebody chooses, sorry. It's not crazy that somebody compares things in this way. Uses some rule based on some margins and then sees about it, what is best for her. Now, I didn't have here completeness. I believe, this is no longer in the homework, I don't think. So I don't remember that. So what is a violation of completeness? This is not in the slides, but maybe it's in one of the homeworks or not. If it's in the homeworks, well, I already give it to you if you are here. A good way to think about completeness is, problems of completeness is if you choose for someone else. So you suppose you have children and you go to a shop, to a Lego shop, for instance. You are coming back from work and flying or in a train station, and there is a tiny shop there with Legos, and you haven't seen your children in a while, so you buy them something to feel better with yourself. And the children, you have two children, and one of them likes, for instance, likes the police cars over the planes, and really hates Star Wars Legos, which are terrible. The other child likes the planes better than the Star Wars, and really doesn't like the police. He has some trauma with the police, not happy with that. Now, if you ask the person between the airplane, if you are asking this person between the airplane and the Star Wars, the mother or the father in the story looks at it and says, look, clearly both of my children like rather the plane. And so I don't have a preference for it, but I follow the preference of my children. And so the plane is really better for the parents than the Star Wars. But if you are asking between the Star Wars and the police, for the parent, it may not be possible to answer the question, what do you want better? They may have to make a choice. Because the train is running and they need to get into it. Let me just grab something. But there is no meaningful way in which they can tell you what they prefer. And it is not that they are indifferent. It is simply that they cannot tell, because their preferences in some sense is some aggregate of the preferences of these people who are in conflict with each other. Okay, so that's an example of violation of completeness. Sometimes it's called indecisiveness. You cannot decide. Okay, you cannot decide. But that's not most important violation. This is much more common violation. But suppose that you have a certain choice rule, C of x, that satisfies this warp. This is the axiom I gave you before. Warp, for weak axiom of Reville preference, is the name. So you have an axiom, you have a rule that satisfies this condition I gave you before. Namely, if you choose something and not something else, you are presented with different choice. You do not choose that something else rather than the thing you chose. So that was the condition. Then there is a well-defined preference relation, meaning complete and transitive, so satisfying these assumptions, that is consistent with it. Namely, that you could think that the person behaving in this way is actually trying to achieve the goals determined by this preference relation. I see this person making choices, and these choices do not violate the condition I gave you. I never see the person choosing something they rejected when something they liked better or they chose before was available. I never see that. Well, then I can find some preferences. I can find some preferences that justify these choices, that rationalize these choices, as it is called. I can find a reason in the madness of the person. I can find a way to understand why is he choosing this. Well, it's because he likes this better, and then this better, and then this better, and then this better. And that makes some sense for that person. Doesn't have to make sense for me. Makes sense for that person. Conversely, if the person does not fulfill this criterion, then I cannot find such preferences. Then I cannot find a reason for the madness. There is maybe some rule that she's following, but it is not a rule based on these comparisons, and in particular, it may be that this condition fails. Okay. It may be that the person's preferences are not transitive, which is an example here. Okay. So why is this important? And I'm finished with this. Let me. Yeah. Why is this important? Well, because this will allow me, you will see, not today, we will finish now more or less, because, but this will allow us to go from what we see. What do we see? We see people making choices. We see people in the bookshop. We see people driving the car. We see people, what was the other? Buying or giving access to their data to a company. Those are choices that we see in people. And from those choices, we will be able to say, hey, this person did not show me somehow that she would, choices fulfill the criteria, and therefore I can try to understand what she wants. And once I understood what she wanted from those choices that I see, I'm going to be able to say, what would this person do in a different universe? And why is that important? Well, because when we think about policy, we think about other policies that we could implement. And we need to know what would happen under alternative policies. When the government announces that they will increase this tax or they will increase this subsidy, they have in mind that under this new policy, people will respond in a certain way. And they will be, in some sense, doing something that's better for them or worse for them. And that's how we compare policies. By thinking, given what we see of what people do now, what can we infer about what they want? And given that I know what they want, then I can say, what would they do in this other universe? That's what applied economics cares about mostly. What would you do if you were to change the policy? Well, the fundamental idea in economics that allows us to make that question is what's called Reville preference. I see what they do, I infer what they want, what that preference is revealed to me, and then I use that preference somewhere else. So this is really why I start always with this lecture, because I think it's the most important concept that you will experience as an economist, is the idea that we understand what people want from what people do, and then we go back to what people would do if we change what they can do. Now, formally, this doesn't mean when I see somebody who fulfills the criteria, doesn't mean that the individual either is actually rational or has these preferences. It just means that her behavior up to now is consistent with those. It just means that it's as if she is rational and has these preferences. It could be that the person is completely random. It's choosing just weird. But it turned out that it didn't violate this. It's not that she has these preferences, it's that just is doing just nonsense. Okay? So this is an important consideration that you should always take into account. But once you have this as a starting assumption, you keep it until somebody proves you wrong. Now, those preferences, and this goes back to the point of Ang drinking the milk, may be completely crazy. And by crazy, I hear, sorry, but yeah, is what the kind of casual meaning of the word, not a real meaning of the word. So, suppose Ang makes a sequence of choices over her life, and she is consistent with the assumption we have warp. She makes choices that never violate this. Whenever she rejected something, she will never choose it when the alternative she chose is available. Ang's sister Betty likes to contradict Ang. That's what she wants in life. She doesn't want anything else. So every time in her life, she chooses whatever Ang did not choose. Well, it turns out, you can easily show, that Betty is also rational. Of course, she is not trying to do anything really. She's just doing whatever Ang is not doing. So she doesn't really have those preferences in any meaningful way. That's not the objective. Those choices don't fulfill any objective for Betty. All that she's doing is contradicting Ang. If Ang changed her choice, Betty would change her choice too. So Betty in no way is rational. Yet she looks rational because whenever she's doing something, she's never going to choose a rejected alternative that before she chose, because she's always choosing whatever Ang did not choose. So actually you can show that she's also satisfying the criteria. This is just an example to show two things. First, that you don't violate the criteria doesn't mean that you are rational in any meaningful way. And two, that we don't talk about what the preferences are, because in some sense, Betty, you can think that her preferences make no sense. For instance, she's choosing less money rather than more, for instance, yeah, in some sense. But in principle, we don't make those judgments because we look for internal reasons, not external reasons. From an external perspective, either Ang or Betty cannot be rational because they always make the opposite choices. This cannot be. But from an internal version, Ang's choices make sense for Ang, given what Ang is doing. Betty's choices make sense for Betty. Do not violate Betty's criteria. Okay, let me just finish here. This result, this connection connects choice and preference, and as I said, is the underlying basis of most modern economic analysis. Here is Paul Samuelson, who came up with this in his PhD thesis, I think in 42, so already 80 years. He passed away recently. Economists used to live very long. Recently, they have been dying like flies. But when I was a student, all of these guys were alive. I was like, well, this is a great job. If anything, I can, but then you realize that life, there is too many years is also not ideal. You get bored. But why is this very important? And this was Paul Samuelson's idea. Well, if we connect choices with preferences, now we can make what's called normative statements. We can say this policy is better than this policy for you because you will be, in some sense, better off because you will be choosing something that you would rather prefer to what you are currently choosing. So you would not only say that, I don't know, a universal basic income is good because people have more money. Okay, sure, they have more money. That's what the universal basic income does. No big deal. The question is, in that world, would you be able to achieve your goals better? And that's a question that you need to first figure out what people want to be able to answer. And Samuelson's idea is, yes, we can do that if we can see what they do now. From that, we can figure out what they want. And then we can construct with our model this alternative world in which they receive this money and see whether they can better achieve their goals. Okay? So that's why I like to start with this part, because it tells you really what is the underpinning for most of what we will do, which is to make this type of comparisons. Good. So I'll see you Monday. Some of you, I guess. If you are not coming, you have the online version, you have the recorded version. Again, back to logistics. Logistics. Group 3, email me if you want to be, if you have to be in groups 1 or 2. Waiting list in groups 1 or 2, you will be enrolled. If you are not in the Ubuntu, write the Moodle the teacher to enroll you in the Moodle. Okay? If you haven't registered for the course so far, you are in class, come to the front. Yes.
Just to make it clear, so I have one course that's sometimes overlapping with this.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah. No, you are too late. Doesn't matter, but you are. So if you are in group 3, Jim and me. You are not registered. You need to. You need to write me an email. You should have a job registered. But write me an email. Group 3, email me. I don't have access to this because I cannot register another student. So you are showing me some page I've never seen in my life, so I cannot tell you. Yeah, I will but if you were not here, maybe I have also maybe people in the waiting list, but then maybe. We are in group 3. This is for the lecture. No, but this is not about the lecture. This is about the email. Okay. No, that's how. You are not ready. An email. You should apply for all. If you want to. I mean, I don't care. There is a way if there is enough space. That's what I can say. But then you should have sent me an email. Yes. I look into it. Ah.